Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru, and I'm here to talk about Ma, one of the latest Blumhouse releases. And this movie's really interesting because when I first saw the trailer for it, I thought it was going to be kind of like a single white female situation, but with this old lady trying to infiltrate this really young high school friends group. And while to a certain extent that is what the movie's about, it's also about more than that. But I don't really want to talk about that part of the movie until we get to the spoilers, so just keep that thought in the back of your head. This movie is more than it appears. So putting that aside for now, but what I can say is I thought this was a pretty good thriller. The character of Ma is equal parts creepy and unsettling on top of being actually sympathetic and legitimately when you actually get to know her more, a little heart-wrenching. And surprisingly, the teenagers that she spends most of the movie harassing are actually well-written themselves and three-dimensional characters, and I cared about them too. Especially the lead character, who's played by the girl who I mostly know as the badass lesbian chick in Booksmart, which, for the record, was also a pretty solid movie, so if you're thinking about seeing Booksmart, you should see that too. But that's neither here nor there. And so yeah, the main character of this movie is really well written, and you're 100% empathetic with her, and I was impressed with the actress. And she was also perfectly cast too, because it turns out that her mom is played by Juliette Lewis, and the funny part is those two actresses already look like they're related, so it was pitch perfect casting. And that's another thing, this movie actually has a surprising amount of stars in it, not necessarily A-list stars, but people you know from other movies that deliver pretty good performances all around, no matter how small their role. And when the shit hits the fan in this movie, it can get pretty gnarly, though it's never Saw levels of gory or anything. Though it is definitely intense. Now on the downside though, my one complaint with this movie is that I felt like it needed at least one more beat at the end to just really drive the intensity of the movie home. If you've seen a movie like Single White Female, you have this really epic final confrontation between the main character and her stalker. And this movie has a much more understated confrontation, and it's also much more short, and I kind of wanted it expanded just a little bit. I kind of wanted that moment from Fatal Attraction where you think the person's dead and then they spring up with a knife or some shit. But even without a completely bombastic ending, this movie is still relatively complete. And I'd recommend it to anyone who likes these kind of psycho stalker thrillers. Though be warned, there is a dog in this movie that does get hurt over the course of the movie, so if that makes you squeamish, then you should watch at your own discretion. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, I will include an Amazon affiliate link in the description below, and if you click that link and pre-order or buy or rent the movie with that link, I will get a kickback from it. And as I've said many times, every little bit helps. And with that all said, let us move on to the spoilers. So as I said earlier, while this movie on the surface feels like it's just a pure, single white female situation in which you have this character who's trying to infiltrate this group of friends and stalking them and pretending to be one of them. And then of course things escalate until they get truly horrific. There's actually an extra element to this movie that expands it beyond just being one of those kinds of movies. And that's that while this is still a creepy stalker situation, the reason Ma is stalking them is actually different than you think. She's not some crazy old lady who's trying to relive her youth. She's actually out for revenge. Yeah, you heard me. She wants revenge on these kids, but not specifically these kids, their parents. Because you see, it turns out when she was in high school, the parents of the kids went to high school with her, and let's just say they did not treat her right. They pretended to be her friend, and then kind of de facto raped her. And by that I mean it wasn't a violent assault or anything, but they tricked her into thinking she was consenting to someone she wasn't consenting to. And so she ended up having sex with someone, and they then made fun of her for it, and it wasn't the person that she consented to have sex with, and thus her mind was broken at that point, and thus, as she got older, that anger and that resentment festered until we lead into the situation the movie's in which she's now taking it out on the parents through their kids. It's kind of Freddy Krueger-like when you think about it. Freddy Krueger crossed with a little bit of Carrie. And I really like that reveal in this movie because it added a lot of dimensions to Ma, and it also made it so that There are points in the movie in which you're 100% on Ma's side, specifically when she's interacting with their parents, and then there are other points in the movie in which you're 100% on the kid's side, in which she's interacting with the kids. And so you feel bad for both of them, and you kind of want them to both succeed, but you know they both can't possibly succeed because she's gonna hurt them. And the way the movie successfully ping-pongs between those two sympathies is actually, like, really commendable. They did a damn good job. And of course, a lot of credit also has to go to Octavia Spencer, whose performance in this movie is just, she always knocks it out of the park, but she really brought it hard in this movie. When you're supposed to feel bad for her, you're fucking bawling. When you're supposed to be angry for her, you're furious. And when you're kind of supposed to feel both at the same time, you're kind of going crazy too. And that leads us to another dimension that's added to this movie that you don't know from the trailers. Because you see, by the end of the movie, you find out that she's not only trying to infiltrate their friends group, she's also a parent of one of the kids at their school. And it's this kid you're introduced to at the beginning of the movie who has like some sort of like fatal disease that they're dying from, like some sort of cancer. So they're stuck in this wheelchair, they can't move. And the main character meets her at the beginning of the movie. And then by the end of the movie, when she realizes that kid's not showing up at school, she eventually realizes that, oh shit, that's Ma's kid. And we get this reveal that she's been hiding her up in her fucking attic. Well, not attic, but the second floor of their house under lock and key while she's been partying with the kids the whole time. And on top of that, it turns out that she's not actually sick and that Ma has Munchausen's by proxy. So she's been making her kid sick so that her kid will need her on top of everything else. Now on the downside, one thing the movie doesn't explore at all that I feel like it probably should have, and you can really feel it's missing in the movie, is it doesn't explore the racial component of the events that have gone on throughout the movie, like, at all. Because no matter how you slice it, you have this old black lady who's trying to infiltrate this young group of friends with their one token black friend, who unfortunately doesn't have much characterization beyond being a token. In fact, he's one of the few friends that they probably could have developed a little bit more. And on top of that, you have this like harassment of her back in like the 80s or whenever that was supposed to take place. And I kind of feel like there probably would have been back then a little bit more of a racial component to her harassment, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a little nihilistic in that regard. A lot of times in situations like that, I tend to expect the worst from people, so maybe that's just my expectations that are a little askew. But even so, even without that component added into the movie, I still think this is a solid thriller. And definitely something you should all check out. And I just realized the lighting in my video changed because the light outside has darkened, so yay blue! Goddamn, the moment I'm talking about my lighting is the moment I should really end the video. And so with all that said, my fellow gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you want to support my content more directly, I will also link to my Patreon in the description below. And as many of you already know, even if you can only donate $1 a month, every little bit helps. Just goddamn, Ma's just a really good movie, guys. Go check it out. And with that all said, peace out, my fellow gorehounds, and I'll catch y'all later.